Because of the testimony of Cassidy Hutchinson, or are there other factors into timing?
Yeah, Mika, well, why I think Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony was scheduled on Tuesday and why it was so effective was because she really put fingerprints on every person in the White House who had a first-hand seat to the potential criminal activity by the former president and his co-conspirators. And so that we have heard from people involved with the committee that is in part why the testimony from Cassidy, the surprise testimony, which was announced with 24 hours in advance, was scheduled for when it was scheduled. We've also heard that now this subpoena, as a lawyer close to Pat Cipollone confirms, it was provided to provide some coverage for him. But at the same time, we've also heard that there are fears amongst lawmakers on the committee that he's ultimately not going to cooperate, that these tactics to pressure him into cooperating with the committee are going to backfire. And people close to Pat are really skeptical that he's ultimately going to come forward. A lawyer who worked closely with him told us that at the end of the day, he is a big executive privilege guy, which should be obvious to all of us, but that also he thought that the court ruling in the case of Don McGahn, another former White House counsel to former President Trump, was wrong, and that was wrongly decided. And that's when the courts decided that McGahn was compelled to provide testimony to the House under certain parameters. Of course, what we're watching now very closely is whether or not the committee is successful in those negotiations with Cipollone, and whether or not this public pressure campaign that started months ago but has culminated with Cassidy Hutchinson is going to effectively work for them.
Yeah, hey, Chuck, really quickly, what Pat thinks about executive privilege probably takes a back seat to what an 8-1 decision by the Supreme Court thinks about executive privilege, right? Or all we're talking about, if he does decide to not respond to the subpoena, is the committee's going to go to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is going to rule 8-1 that he needs to testify, right?
Hey, Joe, you're going to hate me for this answer, but it's more complex than that. Right? So
oh, no.
Privilege.
This early in the morning? Come on. Keep it easy. Now, tell me about it.
Yeah, maybe you'll hate me later this afternoon. But it's more complex than that. Privilege is determined on a question-by-question, answer-by-answer basis. And so the right way to assert privilege, if you want to do it, is to show up. And if you're asked a question that you think calls for a privileged response, to then assert the privilege. And if the other side has a problem with that, you go to court. So it's a really fact-specific inquiry. And it gets complicated and it gets nuanced. But I am confident that the committee and Mr. Cipollone and his lawyers can negotiate a path through that if both sides are going to operate in good faith.
Jackie, we've heard